So you just got started with real estate wholesaling and you want to get your first deal, but you're struggling. You're struggling for a variety of different reasons. Number one is that you don't have the money and or the marketing budget to be able to spend and get leads, either through direct mail, maybe online leads through Facebook or PPC. So you're stuck cold calling. And then now you have another issue with cold calling, and that is that you have to dial through a tremendously large number of records in order to get any sort of meaningful results. So now the drudgery of you having to be on the phone all day long. The other part of it is that in order to get through that process faster, you could go out and get a phone system where you can dial like two or three numbers at a time. However, the issue with that right now is that a lot of those numbers will show up as spam likely. So people are not going to pick up the phone. So that means that the number of people that you actually connect with is not really going to be that great. And then texting is really difficult simply because of the fact that there's all these laws and regulations that just were recently passed. And so there's a lot of hoops that you have to go through. And also, the real estate industry has pretty much been blacklisted when it comes to sending outbound text messages in order to ask a seller if they're interested in selling their property. So then, how do you get past this particular problem? Now, I'm going to share with you a solution that you may not have thought about. And that is that you should shift your focus into smaller markets that have less competition. And instead of rather than trying to get the largest list of property owners that you can, then you need to figure out the smallest number of property owners that then have the highest likelihood of being able to sell their property at a discount. And then zero in and do everything you can to get a hold of those people, because now you have the best chance of having success. So then that way you can start doing deals with a relatively small budget and then be in a position where you can invest in some sort of marketing endeavor in order to get a deal done. In case we haven't met before, my name is Cris Chico, and I've been in the real estate industry wholesaling for quite a long time and consider the godfather of a term called virtual wholesaling, which is how to do deals all across the country, only using your cell phone and a laptop without ever having to physically inspect every single property and or meet with buyers or sellers. And the real estate industry business has done tremendous for me. I've had great fortune and been able to have an amazing lifestyle, and I would like the same of you, because to me, this business is the best opportunity right now in any economy, but especially now. And I want you to take advantage of it. And so I'm going to start these videos and do these videos more of a peel behind the curtain and show you exactly some very specific strategies and techniques. And you can kind of look over my shoulder. So then that way you can implement these and have a chance of success in the same business that I've had tremendous success with. So here I am using Zillow.com, and I'm going to share with you what most people do. And what most people do is, let's say you are located in Georgia, and you're going to go in, and more than likely is you're going to attack one of the major metro areas, and you're going to go in there and try to figure out the list of property owners that potentially would have the highest likelihood of selling the property. But you've got a couple of issues. Number one is you're going to be dealing with a fairly large list. That's number one. And so it's very difficult to narrow it down. But number two is that you're dealing in a market that there is a lot of competition, which means that then you're butting heads with every single other real estate investor who has the idea of targeting property owners in that area. And yes, you could argue that deals are being done every single day, and there's no reason why you can't do a deal there. But I always think about one of my mentors who always said that if you're a ninja, what would you rather do? Fight other ninjas, or would you rather fight the first graders at the local school? You'd rather fight the first graders because that's an easier fight to win. And so, how do we then figure out an easier fight to win? And so, the way we do that is by figuring out what smaller markets that have that are hot, small markets that are hot, that then you can go in and then zero in on the right seller for today's market, because today's market demands a particular type of seller that you go after. So let's cover these one step at a time. And so the first step is identifying the right market. So what I'm suggesting, and this is what my students are doing, is that they're going in and looking at the smaller markets, and then now figuring out if that small market has the potential to generate leads. And so the way we do that here is by setting up the search on Zillow, as I have it here, I'm going to set it up for houses, right? And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set that search up for houses that were built. We don't want newer houses, so I'm just going to put 2015, just arbitrarily. So I want older houses because typically, for the most part, a lot of the property owners that we deal with have properties that are in need of repairs and fixing up, and so that's the ideal type of property, a property that has needs work, and so then that's always going to be an older property typically. So we want to kind of hedge our bets around that. And what we're going to do is when you do that and you look at Zillow, and I'm going to just remove the boundary here, you could very easily, quickly see where the pockets of population are within Zillow. And as you zoom in here, right, you can, and the dots will change, right? So you'll see more and more dots. But what you're trying to find out is you're going to be moving around these markets and trying to identify what activity is happening in these markets, and are these markets hot or cold? And you can easily do this in Zillow without having to do too much work. I'll give you an example. So this is, for example, and then I'll give you an example of a market that I have identified, and I just let you know that potentially could be a market that you would go after. Now, this is Macon, Georgia, I believe, right? Yeah, Macon, Georgia. So you can see here that there's quite a bit of activity. Now, it is a smaller market, not a tiny market, but I would consider this a medium market. A smaller market would be something, I'll show you one of the other smaller markets. So let's say in Macon, we're analyzing Macon, and now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we are selecting houses and that we are selecting, I'm going to uncheck this coming soon. I want all available properties, but I just want houses. I don't want any of the, trailer homes or anything like that. And then everything else is pretty much untouched. I'm going to apply. Now here's a trick. When we look at this, we see that there's 414 properties available for sale. Now, what we can do is we can toggle between available for sale and then also that availability of properties available for sale to include pending and under contract. And when I do this, you can see that the number changes. I'll do it again. It was 414, and then now it's 500. Now, I don't have my calculator, so I'm just gonna, what is that? 414 and 500. So that is 75. So out of the total 500, 75 properties are pending. So 75 divided by 500, then that's about 15% of the inventory is pending. Now, you might be asking, well, how do I figure out if that's a good number or not? This analysis is a relative analysis, not an absolute analysis, meaning that there's no set number, but rather that if you are going to, say, contemplate on a market in Georgia, then you would go through this process and figure out where you feel your best opportunity is. So I'll give you an example. This is one that I was looking at, and this is in Hinesville, Georgia. So Hinesville, and I mean, look at this here, Hinesville, Georgia. And if we remove the boundary and when we zoom out, it's near Savannah. This is where Savannah is. And then you go to Hinesville here, and you can see that over here, this is the market. Now, what I've done with this is, again, I'm keeping the year built to be 2015 if I remove that in its entirety. And I can see that there's 326 properties for sale in total. If I will go in and do 2015, then that number will decrease, right? So now I have 75. So what does that tell me? Think about it. Then there's a lot of activity on newer houses available for sale. So let's look at the 2016, right? So when I look at this, I'm like, okay, well, is it just a lot of new home inventory, or just that something, a lot of these houses were bought, were built recently? So I'm going to do 2020 and see where that number shows up, 93. So to me, it looks like there might have been a lot of activity around 2015. So what I can do is I can go ahead 2015 to say 2016. So that's odd. So I'm going to just, let's see, Year built, nothing. If we do 2015, let's check that again. 2015 is 75, but if we remove the 2015 completely, and we get 326. So the question is, where are those properties coming from? So then if we go 2015 and no max, then there's 253. So where is that pocket of inventory? See, it's over here. So this is what's throwing it off, is that there's a new development here and it has a lot of different properties here. So if I see there's 48 new homes here. So that particular one I have to take into consideration. So that's why we remove the newer homes, right, from the picture, because we're not going to be dealing with those, and we want to know what the activity is on the older homes. So then let's go ahead and bring this back to zero, no minimum, and we will keep it. Let's say I'm going to keep it 2000 and I'll keep it 2015. That's fine. All right, so that's that. So then now we have available of 76 properties by agent. But check this out. If I do pending and under contract, what's the other number? All of a sudden that number jumped up to 161. So 161, what does it tell you? This tells you that this is a very hot market. There's a flaming hot market outside the main market. So 161 total, and we have a total of 76. So 161, 161 minus 76 is 85. 85 properties are pending. So 85 divided by 161. So it's 52% of the housing inventory is turning here, which is a very large number. That's one of the highest that I have seen, honestly. So then, now this here could be an opportunity for you to go in and be able to now then source properties in this area. Now, if you have an option of any one particular owner that you're going to target, what is the best owner to target in today's real estate market? The best owner to target really is going to be an absentee owner. And it's going to be an absentee owner for a couple of different reasons. Now, if you then are going to go into this market and try to find motivated property owners, then who are you going to target? The ideal person to target in today's market is someone who does not need to buy another house where they're going to next. And that's because interest rates are high. So if you're a property owner and you're looking to sell your property, and the question that comes up is, where are you going to go next? Because your purchasing power is decreased. If you have a mortgage that maybe is a 3% mortgage, and now you're moving into something else that's an 8%, then that's a double the interest rate, which means that your purchasing power has dramatically decreased, which means that you might say, I'm better off staying where I'm at because I'm going to get a house that is less than what I have potentially, and I'm going to pay the same amount of money per month. So it doesn't make any sense for me. So you need property owners that they don't need to buy another house. And those are absentee owners. Those are landlords. It could be a probate situation. It could be a vacant property. Those are the ones that I would focus on, simply because they're not going to be in a position where they're going to be resistant to selling, because they just want the cash. They just want the cash out of the market to do something else. And so then now that's what I would zero in on. Now, in this particular situation, what you want to do is you want to zero in not only on the market, right? We talked about picking a smaller market that has a lot of potential. You also want to zero in on that specific type of property owner. And so what's going to happen is you're going to get a relatively small list. And the list that I'm talking about is a list of maybe a couple hundred people at the most. So rather than going out and trying to deal with a list that's 10,000, 15,000 records, now you're dealing with a list that's a lot more manageable. And which means that then now your potential for doing a deal is higher on a per contact basis. Now, the next thing is, well, you might say, Chico, how am I going to get hold of those people? At that moment, you're going to go ahead and just use the thing that you have in your hand right now, which is your phone. Because if you're on a tight budget, then a likelihood is you don't want to spend the money on a dialer, number one, and you also have the issue with these dialers showing up as spam likely. So the most effective but yet inefficient way of doing this would be to just use your phone. Now, if you have any hesitation and you say, well, gee, I don't know if I want to use my phone because, people who know that I'm calling, that's not anything that I would worry about. If that's the thing that stops you, then you've got bigger problems because that should be the least of your problems. And so then you would hand dial each of those individuals. You would get the list. And I'm going to create another video for a system that we've been developing to help real estate investors um, uh, fine tune these markets and identify the highest likelihood sellers. So that way you have the best chance of getting a deal with the least amount of money. So comment if you want to see a video on that. But this is my suggestion for you. And the reason I made this video is that, and you'll notice that this video is a little bit different than my other videos. I try to produce, these fancy videos, and they just don't, it's too much work for me. I'm busy with my real estate business and doing other things. And so I feel that, number one, I want to be able to get some of this information out to you with the least amount of friction possible. And number two is that I also understand, part of the problem is that I have not put myself in the shoes of you, meaning that if you're struggling, if you're struggling to get a deal and you don't have money for marketing, then what's the solution? I spend money on ads each and every single day, a lot of money. And it's okay because I can afford it and I'm experienced and I've got a team. And so it's okay for us to spend that sort of money. But for you, it would be difficult for you to spend that sort of money. And so my thought process is, what can I do to help you so that then you can get a deal done with a smaller marketing budget and yet have a chance then to be able to start making money in this business. And then you might consider doing ads. But we got to get you to that first deal as quickly as possible. And so that's the intent of this video. So hopefully this video was helpful in helping you identify. Maybe you might be just digging in the wrong market and you just need to change your approach and fine tune it. So then that way you're dealing with a smaller pool of prospects and you're going to go really hard on those prospects to try to find them and to try to get a deal done.